Mom, please, stop. You'll make yourself sick. How can I not be upset? Look at what your brother has done, bringing that woman home with her belly that big. He's going to be the death of me. Through the closed door of our living room, the wails of my mother-in-law, Sharon, still rattled my eardrums. In my arms, my 3-year-old son, Leo, was pale with fright, his little arms locked tight around my neck. My husband, Ethan, opened the door to the master bedroom. His face wore a perfectly crafted mask of exhaustion and apology. Ellie, it's a madhouse out there. Could you take Leo to your mom's for a couple of days? I'll come get you both as soon as I get this sorted out. I nodded, saying nothing. Through the crack behind him, I saw my brother-in-law, Kevin, sitting slumped on the sofa, head in his hands. A young woman with delicate features and an arrogantly defiant air was caressing her swollen stomach, watching the chaos with cold detachment. That was Maya. This was the shocking scene I had walked into after work today. My brother-in-law had gotten someone pregnant. His wife of less than a year, after a hysterical fit that destroyed half the living room, had been taken away in tears by her family. Ethan placed Leo's small suitcase in the trunk of my car, then leaned in to kiss our son's forehead, his actions as gentle as a model father's. Be a good boy, buddy. Go have fun at Grandma's for a few days. Daddy will be there to get you soon. He straightened up and took my hand, his eyes overflowing with guilt. Ellie, I'm so sorry you have to go through this. Kevin, he's my brother. I have to clean up his mess. With the house like this, you're the only one I can count on to keep things steady. I know, I said softly, pulling my hand away. You should go back inside. Your mom needs you. Drive safe. I started the car. In the rearview mirror, I watched him standing there, a tall, sturdy figure watching me drive away, as reliable as ever. But for some reason, the sight of it today left a strange, hollow feeling in my chest. Once we were out of the neighborhood, Leo fell asleep in his car seat. The city lights streamed past the windows, painting my face in shifting patterns of light and shadow. I took a deep breath, trying to quell the inexplicable anxiety rising within me. Kevin had always been irresponsible. While this situation was unexpected, it wasn't entirely out of character. As the older brother, it was Ethan's duty to handle the fallout, and as the sister-in-law, temporarily removing myself from the drama was the smartest move. It was all perfectly logical. So why couldn't I get Maya's fleeting, provocative glance out of my head? The car was on the freeway now, my mind a chaotic mess. Suddenly, my stomach dropped. I slammed on the brakes. Damn it, I whispered. I'd forgotten Leo's immunization records in the study drawer. He had a vaccination appointment at the clinic tomorrow. They wouldn't do it without the records. I checked the GPS. It was only a 15-minute drive to turn around and go back. They were probably still dealing with Kevin's mess. I could slip in, grab the folder, and leave without anyone noticing. No awkward encounters. Decision made. I turned the car around and headed back home. To avoid drawing attention, I parked on the street outside our gated community. Carrying a sleeping Leo, I tiptoed up to our apartment. The lights were still on, but the shouting from the living room had ceased. It was quiet. Relieved, I took out my key, but just as I was about to insert it into the lock, I heard my husband's hushed voice from inside, laced with impatience and a placating tone. All right, stop crying. Isn't everything going according to our plan? It was Maya's whimpering I heard next. My heart seized. I pressed my ear closer to the door. But the way your mom and brother look at me, like they want to eat me alive. Ethan, I'm scared. What's there to be scared of? I'm here. Don't worry about my mom. Right now, she thinks the baby is Kevin's. All she wants is a grandchild. She'll get over it in a few days. As for Kevin, that loser thinks you just miscalculated your cycle. He's so stupid, he's easy to manipulate. My blood ran cold. Ethan's voice continued, now dripping with a smug cruelty. You just stay here and focus on growing my son, nice and healthy. Once the baby is born, I have my ways of making that woman, Eleanor, leave with nothing. Then this house, this firm, everything, it will all belong to you and our son. The key slipped from my numb fingers, clattering softly on the welcome mat. The voices inside stopped abruptly. Who's out there? Ethan asked sharply. My body went rigid, my heart hammering against my ribs. I clamped my hand over Leo's mouth, praying he wouldn't make a sound in his sleep. A few seconds later, I heard the doorknob turn. I scrambled, practically falling over myself as I bolted for the stairwell and hid in the dark corner, not daring to breathe. The door opened. Ethan peered out, his eyes scanning the empty hallway. "See? No one. You're hearing things," he said, shutting the door. In the darkness, I leaned against the cold wall, shaking like a leaf in an autumn wind. A wave of nausea churned in my stomach. Leave with nothing. My son. So, this was all a performance. A vicious play directed by the man I trusted most, designed to strip me of everything I owned. And I, an award-winning screenwriter, was the last idiot in this B-rate drama to find out the truth. I don't know how I managed to carry Leo back to the car. The moment I shut the door, I collapsed over the steering wheel, dry heaving silently. There were no tears, only a bone-deep chill brought on by the ultimate betrayal. It was nearly midnight when I arrived at my parents' house. My mom, woken by the sound of the door, was shocked to see me standing there with a sleeping Leo, my face a wreck. "Ellie? What happened?" "Mom, something came up at Ethan's. I'm staying here with Leo for a few days," I managed, forcing a smile that felt more painful than a sob. My voice was raw. "I forgot his immunization records. We'll have to reschedule his shot." My mom took Leo from my arms, her face full of concern. She didn't press further, just sighed. "You're a grown woman, still so forgetful. Go take a hot shower. You look as white as a ghost." I nodded and went into the bathroom, turning the water on as hot as I could stand. The scalding spray washed over my body, but it couldn't warm the heart that had frozen solid inside me. I didn't cry. For a professional writer, emotions are tools, not masters. When a story deviates from the outline, the first step isn't to break down. It's to calm down, analyze the structure, find the plot holes, and then rewrite it. After my shower, I locked myself in my old bedroom, which now served as a study. On the shelves were the well-worn crime novels and psychology textbooks from my college days at NYU. I didn't turn on the light, sitting at the desk in the moonlight filtering through the window. I didn't need pen or paper. My mind was my most precise workshop. I began to break down the scene. I replayed the last hour in my mind, over and over. Ethan's attentiveness, Sharon's fury, Kevin's weakness, Maya's smugness. Every expression, every line of dialogue, every gesture became a slow-motion shot, dissected and analyzed. Before, I saw them as family, my vision clouded by a filter of affection. Now, I saw them as characters in my new script, and everything became crystal clear. The sky began to lighten. In my mind, I had constructed a clear character map and a plot outline. This wasn't a simple affair. This was a meticulously planned conspiracy to seize my assets, using marriage as a cover and a child as a weapon. Ethan's targets were the Upper East Side apartment my parents bought me before the wedding, my continuous income from royalties, and the shares in my family's company they had promised to Leo. My son and I were just obstacles to be removed. I stood and walked to the window, watching the sleeping city awaken in the dawn light. The cold numbness of the previous night was gone, replaced by an almost cruel calm. As a screenwriter, I despise illogical plots and one-dimensional characters. "Ethan, the script you've handed me is terrible. So terrible that I have no choice but to write it a completely different ending." My phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. "Morning, honey. Are you awake? Everything's fine here." Mom's calmed down. "When are you and Leo coming home?" I stared at the words, a cold smile touching my lips. I called him back. "Ethan," I said, my voice deliberately thick with sleep. "My mom won't let us leave," she says. "She says your family's drama is too much. She's worried it'll scare Leo. She wants us to stay a few more days." There was a pause on the other end, then Ethan's gentle, helpless voice. "I understand. It's all Kevin's fault. But please, try to talk to her. We're a family. We can't just hide away. The house feels so empty without you." "I know," I said softly, my tone full of understanding. "Don't worry. I'll keep trying to convince her. Oh, by the way, could you check the top drawer in the study for Leo's immunization records? I think I forgot them." "Of course. I'll go look right now. Ellie, you're the best." After settling my parents and son, I made an excuse to go out. I didn't drive to my office downtown. Instead, I drove to an inconspicuous pub in an old Hell's Kitchen neighborhood. In a quiet booth in the back, a man with a full head of white hair, but a sharp, energetic demeanor, was nursing a whiskey. This was Marcus "Mac" O'Connell, a retired NYPD detective captain who now ran a private security consulting firm. He was also my go-to consultant for all my crime scripts. "Kid, what brings you all the way out here?" Mac said, gesturing for the bartender to bring me a drink. His eyes, cloudy with age but still sharp, swept over my face. "From the look of you, this ain't about a new script." I took a sip of the water the bartender set down. The cool liquid did little to chase away the chill in my heart. "Mac, this time, it might be more complicated than any script I've ever written." I didn't talk about my family. That was my rule, and a sign of respect for Mac. Instead, I used the language we understood best. "I'm workshopping a new story. It's about a cuckoo in the nest." I looked him in the eye and spoke slowly. In the story, the husband conspires with his mistress to steal his wife's assets. He gets his own brother to be the fall guy for the pregnancy. His plan is to wait for the mistress to give birth, then kick out his wife and their original child, securing both the inheritance and his own bloodline. Mac's hand, holding his glass, paused for a fraction of a second. He looked up at me, his gaze deepening. "That's one cold bastard of a protagonist," he said, his voice a low gravel. "And the situation is critical," I continued. "So, as the writer, I need to design a complete counterattack for the heroine. A plan that allows her to get back everything that belongs to her and ensures the villains are punished, all without breaking the law. And this plan, it needs the most detailed, reliable research to back it up." Mac was silent for a moment, then set his glass down. "All right, kid, tell me what kind of research you need." He got it. That's the beauty of talking to smart people. No lengthy explanations needed. "I need 2 teams, I said, holding up 2 fingers. "First, I need the best private investigator you know. I need a full background check on a character named Maya, 24 years old. I gave him her basic information. I need everything from the day she was born, social circles, financial records, spending habits, even her entire romantic history before she met Kevin. I want to know her inside and out." Mac nodded. "That's the easy part. Second," I took a deep breath. "I need a highly professional forensic accounting team. I need them to go through all the assets under my name, my husband Ethan Cole's name, and our respective parents' companies. I want a full breakdown of all cash flow, especially large transfers within the last year, any offshore accounts, and possible proxy holdings. I suspect the male lead started moving marital assets long before the story began." This time, Mac's brow furrowed. "Ellie, digging up dirt on a person is one thing. Digging into corporate books, that's a whole other league." "Mac," I interrupted, looking him straight in the eye. "My consultant fee for this script has no upper limit. I have only one condition: absolute discretion, absolute thoroughness, and absolute legality. I need things that will stand up in court as evidence." Mac looked at me, his expression complex. He'd known me for nearly a decade, from a rookie writer to an industry name. He knew my character. I would never resort to such measures unless I was pushed to the absolute edge. He let out a heavy sigh, then pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "Yeah, it's Mac. I've got a job for you. The ask is clean and complete. Money's not an issue. The client is solid gold. Hanging up?" He looked at me. "I got you your people. Best in the business, used to work for the DA's office. Tighter lips than a bank vault. But kid, I gotta warn you, once you start this, there's no turning back. Some truths are a lot uglier than anything you could write." "I know," I said, standing up and giving him a deep, respectful nod. "Thank you, Mac. This is a script I have to finish." The sunlight was blinding as I walked out of the pub. I pulled out my phone and saw a text from Ethan. "Honey, I found the immunization records. They were right in the drawer. When are you coming to get them?" I replied, "My mom is still worried. She said she'll bring Leo over herself in a couple of days. You just take care of your mom and your guest." Putting the phone away, I drove to another location, the legal department of my family's corporation. I wasn't there to ask about divorce. I was there to inquire about setting up an irrevocable trust with my son Leo as the sole beneficiary. I stayed at my parents' house for 3 days. I calculated the time, letting the tension simmer until I felt it was just right. Then I returned home with Leo, wearing the guise of a dutiful wife who understood the big picture. The moment I walked in, I saw my mother-in-law, Sharon, directing the housekeeper on how to prepare some organic bone broth for Maya. She froze when she saw me, then her face broke into an overly enthusiastic smile. She grabbed my hand, her grip so tight it felt like she was trying to crush my bones. "Ellie, you're back! Come in, come in! We've missed you so much these past few days," she exclaimed, her voice loud enough for a stage play, pulling me inside. "Look at you, being so formal in your own home. We're all family. There's nothing we can't talk through." I let her pull me onto the sofa. Ethan immediately sat down beside me, his arm wrapping naturally around my shoulders. "Ellie, I'm so sorry you were put through that," he sighed, his face a mask of remorse. "It's all Kevin's fault, that damn kid. He upset you and Mom." Maya, sitting in an armchair, stroked her belly and shot me a timid glance before quickly looking down, playing the part of a pitiful victim. Kevin stood by the wall like a scolded child, not daring to lift his head. What a perfect portrait of a family weathering a crisis together. I managed a weary, helpless expression. "Mom, Ethan, don't say that. I wasn't angry with anyone. It's just that Leo is so young. I was worried all the fighting would scare him." "See? Ellie is so understanding." Sharon immediately seized on my words, slapping her thigh. "I told you, our Ellie is the most reasonable one. Not like some people who make a mountain out of a molehill and drag the family name through the mud." The jab was clearly aimed at Kevin's estranged wife. Clearing her throat, Sharon got to the point. First, she tore into Kevin with righteous fury. Then, her tone shifted to one of weary resignation. "Well, what's done is done. We can't change it now. This is still our family's blood." She glanced at Maya's belly, her expression complicated, but desire ultimately won out. "Ellie, you're the older sister-in-law. We need you to take the lead on this. Look at this girl, Maya. She has no official status. It's a sad situation. We can't just let her be out on her own, can we?" Ethan chimed in right on cue. "That's right, Ellie. Kevin's marriage is obviously over, but the baby is innocent. I was thinking, we let Maya stay here for now so she can have a peaceful pregnancy. We can figure out the rest after the baby is born. What do you think?" They tag-teamed me, tossing the decision into my lap. Their strategy was brilliant. If I agreed, it meant that I, in my official capacity as sister-in-law, was accepting Maya and the Cole family blood in her womb. It would lay the most crucial foundation for the next phase of their plan. I remained silent for a moment, pretending to weigh the difficult decision. Then I looked up at them, a serene, magnanimous smile spreading across my face. "Mom, Ethan, I understand how difficult this is for you," I said softly, my voice laced with a barely perceptible hint of grievance. "Kevin is Leo's uncle. His child will be Leo's cousin. What else can I, the aunt, say? Let's do as you suggest. Let Miss Maya stay here for now. If there's anything you need from me, just ask." My reasonable response made Ethan and Sharon visibly relax. Ethan's arm tightened around my shoulders as he planted a kiss on my forehead. I knew it. My wife is the best woman in the world. Sharon was beaming. "That's right. This is how a family should be. Ellie, don't you worry. Mom knows you've been wronged. I'll make it up to you, I promise." Only Maya, upon hearing me call her Miss Maya, showed a flash of resentment before it was quickly replaced by a smug satisfaction. I accepted their praise with a gentle smile, silently grading their performance in my mind. In the days that followed, I became the perfect, virtuous sister-in-law. I personally oversaw Maya's diet, even preparing nourishing soups for her myself. I would accompany her on walks, chat about pregnancy tips, and show concern for her every need, so much so that even Sharon was full of praise. "Oh, Ellie, you're such a good person," Sharon would say, grabbing my hand. "Kevin is so lucky to have a sister-in-law like you." Ethan grew even more affectionate, bringing me small gifts every day when he came home from work. Our marriage seemed to have returned to the honeymoon phase. They were all convinced I had accepted the new reality, that I had been successfully broken. Under this guise of gentle compliance, I quietly gathered my props. One afternoon, on the pretext of tidying up the guest room where Maya was staying, I sent the housekeeper away. On her nightstand, I saw a brand new laptop. I opened it. No password. A person like Maya probably thought the most obvious place was the safest. I didn't look through sensitive chat logs. That would be too easy to trace. Instead, I opened her browser history. As expected, alongside searches for luxury baby gear and designer handbags, a few entries caught my eye. Lenox Hill Obstetrics, Mount Sinai Birthing Suites, Top Private Maternity Hospital Packages NYC. A small smile played on my lips. The hospital Sharon took her to for checkups was a public one near our home. But Maya was researching these expensive private hospitals, known for their privacy and five-star service. What did that tell me? It meant she and Ethan had a secret, high-end plan for this baby. I closed the laptop and cleaned the room immaculately, as if nothing had happened. That night, the first batch of research from Mac arrived in an encrypted email. I locked myself in the study, put on my headphones, and opened the file. The report was exhaustive. Maya came from a modest background. Her parents were working-class people from a small town in the Midwest. She had graduated from a third-tier art school and worked as a moderately successful model in the city, her income unstable. But a year ago, her life had undergone a dramatic transformation. She had acquired a fully paid-for condo in a luxury building downtown and a Porsche worth nearly $100,000. Mac's team had traced the source of the funds for the condo and car to an offshore shell corporation. The more critical clue was Maya's bank statements. For 3 months before she officially started dating Kevin, a recurring deposit of $50,000 appeared in her account each month. The transfers came from another seemingly unrelated third-party company. But Mac's team, using their technical expertise, peeled back the layers and traced the beneficial owner of that company to a major building materials supplier, one of the largest and longest-term partners of Ethan's architectural firm. The threads connected. Ethan had been siphoning money from his projects by inflating material costs, laundering it through the supplier's accounts, and then funneling it to the shell corporation to pay for Maya. He had been meticulous, setting up firewalls at every step. Without the top-tier financial investigators on Mac's team, it would have been impossible to uncover this trail in such a short time. I stared at the clear flowchart of the money trail on the screen, my fingers tapping lightly on the cold desk. This wasn't just an affair. This was embezzlement. This was commercial bribery. Ethan, you're even greedier and more foolish than I imagined. You thought your firewalls were impenetrable, but you forgot that to a professional writer, any seemingly unrelated clue can be woven into a complete evidence chain once you identify the key motivation. I encrypted and backed up the report, then wiped all traces from my computer. Half the evidence was secured. Now, I needed a catalyst, an event that would present this evidence in the most dramatic way possible to my audience. I began to change my tactics. If my previous care for Maya was subtle, now I started adding lines with hooks. That afternoon, I brought a bowl of homemade chicken soup to Maya's room. She was propped up in bed, eating imported fruit and scrolling through her phone. Seeing me, she lazily glanced up. "Sister-in-law, more delicious food for me?" she purred, her voice dripping with unconcealed triumph. I smiled, placed the bowl on her nightstand, and sat on the edge of her bed. "Maya, you need to nourish yourself now," I began casually. "I'm writing a new script, and the main character is pregnant too. She's taking all sorts of expensive supplements to protect the baby." "Oh, really?" Maya was clearly interested in my work. "I bet your new script is another one of those hit shows with a strong female lead." "Something like that," I chuckled, casting my line. "But this one is a bit different. It's a crime thriller. It's about a woman who gets pregnant with another man's child to marry into a rich family, and she sets up one of the family's sons to take the fall." Maya's hand, holding a spoon, visibly froze midair. I pretended not to notice and continued with my story. "This woman's plan is so meticulous, she fools everyone, but she never counted on the matriarch of the family, the heroine of my script being an expert in forensic psychology." As I spoke, I watched Maya's micro-expressions. Her smile was strained, but her eyes had started to dart around nervously. "So, my heroine, just by observing some very subtle physical traits of the baby after it's born, like blood type, the shape of its ears, even some minor hereditary habits, she figures out the baby has no biological connection to the son. Then, she quietly collects the baby's DNA, gets a sample of the real lover's DNA, and at the family's inheritance meeting, in front of everyone, she reveals the paternity test results." I paused, looking at Maya's now pale face, and added with a tone of mock pity, "Isn't that woman foolish? With today's technology, you can't fake DNA." In the end, not only is she kicked out, but she's also sued for fraud by the family. A really tragic ending. I picked up her soup bowl, stirred it gently, and blew on it before handing it to her. Here, drink this before it gets cold. Don't mind me rambling on, it's just a story. Maya forced a smile that looked worse than a grimace and took the bowl. I could see her hand trembling slightly. Wow, sister-in-law, you're funny. That's quite a story. It is, isn't it? I stood up and adjusted her blanket, my smile serene. It's how I make a living. Well, enjoy your soup. I'll let you rest. The moment I stepped out of the room, the smile vanished from my face. I knew my first line of dialogue had been planted like a ticking time bomb in Maya's mind. She would be afraid. She would panic. And a person in a panic is the easiest to manipulate and the most likely to make a mistake. While planting the psychological bomb in Maya, I began working on the weakest link in the chain of lies. My brother-in-law, Kevin. Ever since Maya moved in, Kevin's status in the house had plummeted. Sharon glared at him all day, scolding him for disgracing the family name. Ethan constantly lectured him in his capacity as the older brother, telling him to take responsibility and appease Maya. He was like a caged animal, frustrated and suffocating with nowhere to vent. I needed to give him an outlet that would allow him to redirect his anger away from himself and onto others. One evening, Ethan had a business dinner and wouldn't be back until late. Sharon was at a dance rehearsal for her community group. It was just me, Leo, Kevin, and the pampered Maya in the house. I had the nanny take Leo out to the backyard to play. Then I brought a plate of cut fruit and knocked on Kevin's door. He was playing video games with his headphones on, his face a mask of dejection. "Kevin," I called softly. He took off his headphones and stood up awkwardly when he saw me. "Ellie, you've seemed down lately. Have some fruit," I said, placing the plate on his desk and pulling up a chair, my tone as warm as a trusted confidance's. "Ellie, He started to speak, then stopped, his eyes red. "I know you're feeling wronged," I said, jumping in before he could continue. "This whole thing isn't entirely your fault. Young people make mistakes. It happens." My understanding was the key that unlocked his floodgates. "Ellie, you have no idea. I'm the bad guy to everyone. Mom yells at me all day. Ethan lectures me. And Maya, she acts like a queen. She wants the best of everything, and I don't have the money to give it to her. I told her we should just go get a marriage license, but she refuses. She says we have to wait until after the baby is born. I really don't know what to do anymore." He buried his head in his hands, his voice choked with anguish. I listened quietly, handing him a tissue. "Kevin, as your sister-in-law, there's something I want to say, but I'm not sure if I should." I looked at him with feigned hesitation. "Ellie, please, say it. You're the only one I can trust right now." "I don't think Maya really wants to build a life with you," I said, choosing my words carefully. "Think about it. If a woman truly loved you and your child, why would she refuse to even marry you? The way she's dragging this out, it's like she's waiting for a better offer." Kevin looked stunned. "A better offer? What do you mean?" I sighed, beginning my logical induction. "She probably thinks you can't give her the life she wants right now, so she's using the baby to tie you down. Or rather, to tie down our family. She's waiting for Ethan, for Mom and Dad, to give her a satisfactory price." "Price?" Kevin's face darkened. I nodded, then deployed my prop. "Kevin, something's been bothering me. A few days ago, I was helping Ethan organize his study, and I accidentally saw a bank transfer record. It was from one of his friend's companies. A huge amount, almost $300,000. I paused, watching his shocked expression. I didn't think much of it at the time, figured it was a business transaction. But hearing what you just said, I suddenly remembered the transfer was made right around the time Maya moved in. And the recipient's account, I think the last name was Maya. I didn't directly name Maya's family, keeping it vague to make it sound like an accidental discovery. Kevin's breathing grew ragged, his eyes wide. "Ellie, are you saying Ethan gave Maya $300,000? I quickly waved my hands in a panic. "Oh, don't jump to conclusions. I didn't say that. Maybe Ethan felt bad for you and wanted to help you out with Maya, so he gave you the money." The more I tried to deny it, the more convinced Kevin became. "Help me?" he sneered, his fists clenching. "If he wanted to help me, why didn't he just give me the money? Why go behind my back and secretly give it to her? Does he think I'm an idiot? Once planted, the seed of suspicion would grow wildly in his weak and insecure heart. He would start to question if the baby was even his. He would start to question what role his own brother was really playing in all this. Seeing the fire of anger and jealousy ignite in his eyes, I knew I had succeeded. I stood up and patted his shoulder. "Kevin, don't overthink it. Ethan always has our best interests at heart. Maybe he had his reasons. Eat your fruit. I'm going to check on Leo." I left him there, alone, to stew in his own confusion and rage. Ethan was on top of the world lately. He was pouring all his energy into bidding for the Apex Center for the Arts project. For him, this wasn't just a massive contract. It was his coronation, the project that would elevate him to the top of his field and finally free him from the shadow of my family's influence. He needed this new city landmark to prove his worth, to announce to the world that Ethan Cole was a self-made man. He had pulled out all the stops. Through Mac's channels, I learned that he wasn't just working on the business front, he was also making plenty of moves behind the scenes. The ultimate decision-maker, the city's Deputy Mayor Thompson, had become the focus of his lobbying efforts. I had met Deputy Mayor Thompson once at one of my father's dinners. He was a stern, old-fashioned man who valued family ethics and personal integrity above all else. Rumor had it that he once sidelined a highly talented subordinate without hesitation because the man had an extramarital affair. This was Ethan's greatest vulnerability, and it was the stage I had meticulously chosen for his grand execution. As the bidding entered its final, heated stage, Ethan decided to host a high-end private cocktail party on the rooftop terrace of our penthouse. It wasn't just to show off his wealth and taste, but to project the perfect image of a successful man with a happy family. He invited several key members of the project's review board and their spouses. Deputy Mayor Thompson's chief of staff and his wife were the guests of honor. That evening, I played the role of the impeccable hostess. I chose an elegant, champagne-colored gown that was tasteful yet radiant, perfectly complementing Ethan's successful man persona. With my arm linked through his, a gentle smile on my face, I moved with him through the mingling guests, handling conversations with ease. "Ethan, you're a lucky man," a portly board member said, raising his glass, his eyes full of envy. "Not only is your wife a brilliant screenwriter, but she's also so gracious and supportive, a true role model for the rest of us." Ethan's face beamed with pride. The arm around my waist tightened. "You're too kind, Mr. Davis. But really, any small success I have is all thanks to Ellie's support. She's the real powerhouse in our family." I offered a demure smile. "You're embarrassing me, Mr. Davis. Ethan's achievements are all due to his own hard work. I just write my stories at home and take care of our son. My job is to be his rock, so he can go out and conquer the world without any worries." My words were flawless, simultaneously praising my husband and showcasing my own wifely devotion. It earned a round of approving murmurs. Ethan was clearly pleased, the admiration in his eyes almost palpable. He probably still thought I was the same naive woman who lived and breathed for him. As the night wore on, the atmosphere grew more lively. I noticed the deputy mayor's wife, Mrs. Thompson, holding court with a group of ladies in a quiet seating area. Their laughter drifted on the evening breeze. That was the most important social circle of the night. My chance had come. Holding a glass of champagne, I gracefully walked over and joined their conversation. I shared a few funny anecdotes about Leo's preschool and some parenting tips, quickly fitting in. During a lull, I feigned weariness, rubbing my temples and letting out a soft sigh. This subtle gesture was immediately caught by the observant Mrs. Thompson. "Mrs. Cole, you don't look well," she said softly, her voice full of concern. "Are you overworked these days?" I immediately looked flustered, as if I'd made a mistake. "Oh, no, Mrs. Thompson, not at all. It's just, we've had some family matters lately and I haven't been sleeping well. It's nothing, really. Trivial things. Please, let's not spoil the mood." The more I tried to hide it, the more curious they became. Human nature is drawn to the whispers of high society secrets. "Oh, Eleanor, you can tell us," another wife chimed in playfully. "We can help you brainstorm a solution. Your husband is doing so well in his career, you must be handling so much at home. It's bound to be stressful." Under their gentle probing, I finally relented, my voice low and troubled. "Honestly, it's nothing major, it's just a bit of family ugliness. I'm embarrassed to even say it." I sighed, casting a glance toward Ethan, who was laughing with a group of men across the terrace. It's my husband's younger brother. He's young and foolish, and he got a girl pregnant. Now she's living with us, and my sister-in-law has moved out. Our home is in constant chaos. Oh my, really? One of the women gasped, her eyes shining with gossip. I'm afraid so, I lamented, continuing my performance. And my husband, he just has too big of a heart. He's so loyal. He keeps saying it's his responsibility as the older brother to clean up the mess. He's been running himself ragged trying to handle it, so much so that he can barely focus on this important project at work. He told me just the other day that if he can't resolve this, he'd be too ashamed to even face Deputy Mayor Thompson. I skillfully dropped the deputy mayor's name, adding weight to the issue. I try to tell him to let it go, but he insists that a peaceful home is the foundation for everything. How can you succeed at work if your family is falling apart? What can a wife do? I just have to support him and pray this whole mess gets sorted out soon so it doesn't affect his career. After all, the Apex project means everything to him. My speech was a masterclass in subtext. On the surface, I was defending my husband, praising his sense of responsibility and family values. But in reality, I had delivered several key pieces of negative information to this crucial audience. Ethan's family background is complicated, with a promiscuous and troublesome brother. The Cole family is currently embroiled in an ethical scandal involving an illegitimate child, leading to domestic turmoil. Ethan is distracted and overwhelmed by these personal issues, casting doubt on his professional focus and stability. Most importantly, I had successfully painted the Coles as a family with poor moral character, precisely the red flag that would trigger Deputy Mayor Thompson's biggest concerns. Mrs. Thompson's expression subtly shifted. Her smile faded, and though she nodded politely, her eyes held a new, calculating distance. She didn't ask any more questions, simply changed the subject. I knew my work was done. By the next morning, these words would be delivered as pillow talk and confidential gossip, reaching the ears of the one person who needed to hear them most, Deputy Mayor Thompson himself. I took my glass to a quiet corner of the terrace. The cool night air billowed in my dress. I looked down at the sparkling city lights and at the man holding court in the center of the party, a cold smile on my lips. 3 days after the party, just as I had predicted, the news came like a thunderbolt. The Apex Center for the Arts project was abruptly put on hold by the city. The official reason was vague. Re-evaluation of bidder qualifications and comprehensive background review required. Everyone in the industry knew what that really meant. Ethan Cole was out. Ethan got the call at his office. I wasn't there, but I could imagine his face. He came home that evening like a storm cloud about to burst, radiating a destructive energy. He stormed into the living room and saw Kevin sprawled on the couch, munching on potato chips with his headphones on, completely oblivious, engrossed in a video game. The scene instantly ignited Ethan's rage. He ripped the headphones off Kevin's head, his eyes red with fury. "You useless piece of trash," he roared. "This is all your fault." The sudden assault startled Kevin. Chips scattered everywhere. He stared blankly for a second, then his own anger flared. "What the hell is your problem? It's not my fault your project fell through. Take your issues somewhere else." "Not your fault?" Ethan was trembling with rage. He grabbed Kevin by the collar and hauled him off the sofa, spittle flying from his mouth. "If it wasn't for your disgraceful, humiliating mess, would Thompson's office have suddenly changed their minds? The whole city is laughing at our family. I'm telling you, Kevin, if I lose this project, you'll be the first person I deal with." Sharon rushed out of her room at the sound of the shouting. Seeing her sons at each other's throats, she immediately sided with her eldest. "Kevin, your brother is right. Look what you've done. Not only are you a failure yourself, but now you've ruined your brother's future. Are you trying to kill this whole family?" All the frustration Kevin had been swallowing for weeks, the daily scoldings from his mother, the lectures from his brother, Maya's dismissive attitude erupted like a volcano. "My fault? It's all my fault," he screamed, violently shoving Ethan's hands away with surprising strength. "All you do is blame me. Has anyone in this house asked me how I feel? Ethan, you look me in the eye and tell me that $300,000 you gave Maya, was that really for me? Are you telling me you didn't have another motive?" What nonsense are you talking about?" Ethan's face paled, a flicker of panic in his eyes. "Nonsense?" Kevin laughed coldly, advancing on him like a cornered animal. Fine. Then tell me why you gave her that much money behind my back. Tell me why that limited edition designer bag she has is the exact same one you brought back from your business trip last month. Don't tell me you bought that for me out of the goodness of your heart, too. Kevin hadn't been idle. The seeds of doubt I had planted had turned him into a secret observer, noting every suspicious interaction between his brother and Maya. Ethan faltered under the barrage of questions. That? I felt sorry for her. I was helping you smooth things over. What do you know? Smooth things over? Kevin's laugh was even more mocking. Does smoothing things over require buying her a $10,000 bag? Does it require the two of you to be locked in the study for hours when I'm not home? Ethan, do you take me for an idiot, or do you take this entire family for idiots? Sharon was completely bewildered by this sudden turn of events, staring back and forth between her sons in shock. Kevin, is what you're saying true? Ethan, what is going on? Just then, the classical music playing from the Sonos speaker in the living room abruptly stopped. A man's voice, clear and distinct, filled the silence. It was Ethan's voice, impatient and promising, like the whisper of a devil. All right, stop making a scene. As soon as I land the Apex project, I'll tell Eleanor it's over. You and our son are what's important. As for Kevin, that loser, I'll just give him some money to get lost. Everything this family has will belong to our son. The recording was from the day before. I had captured it using a miniature listening device hidden in a potted plant in the study while Ethan was on the phone with Maya. I had then used my phone to schedule it to play at this exact time. I had calculated that the project's failure would trigger a massive fight. I had calculated that this fight would bring all their resentments to the surface. And I had calculated that this recording would be the final, crushing blow, bringing the drama to its climax. The living room fell into a dead silence. The air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Kevin's face turned from red to white, then to a sickly green. He looked like a statue struck by lightning, slowly, mechanically turning his head to stare at the brother he had always worshipped, his eyes filled with the horror of looking at a stranger, an enemy. As for my mother-in-law, it was as if she had been struck by an invisible bolt of lightning. She trembled violently, her mouth agape, making strangled, gasping sounds. She pointed a finger at Ethan, the same finger that had so often caressed his cheek, shaking uncontrollably. Her golden boy, the vessel of all her hopes, had schemed against his own brother and planned to cast out the daughter-in-law she had just been praising. Ethan's expression was a spectacle. Shock, panic, disbelief all flashed across his face before settling into a deathly gray. He was a clown stripped naked on stage, all his lies and manipulations brutally exposed. He knew it was over. I descended the stairs slowly, my face a mask of shock and grief, as if I, too, had just heard everything for the first time. Ethan, is what the recording said true? I asked, my voice trembling, tears welling in my eyes, perfectly conveying the heartbreak of betrayal. My appearance was the spark that ignited the powder keg. With a guttural roar, Kevin lunged at Ethan, all his pent-up rage exploding in a single, vicious punch to the face. You're not human. You schemed against your own brother. I'll kill you. The two men were on the floor, trading blows. The living room erupted into chaos. My mother-in-law could no longer stand it. Her eyes rolled back in her head, and she collapsed. Mom! I screamed, rushing to catch her limp body. The house had devolved into a madhouse, a scene from an out-of-control absurdist play. The wail of an ambulance siren cut through the quiet of our neighborhood. Sharon was rushed to the nearest hospital. After a series of urgent tests, the diagnosis came: a severe cerebral hemorrhage. She needed immediate brain surgery. The long corridor outside the operating room became a microcosm of our shattered family. Kevin sat slumped on a cold bench, like a puppet with its strings cut, staring blankly at the floor and muttering, "It's not real! How could this be real? It's all fake!" The shock had sent him into a complete breakdown. Ethan, his face bruised and his lips split, paced anxiously. His phone rang incessantly, calls from the office about the suspended project, calls from relatives demanding to know what happened. He was a wreck, all his former composure gone. I, in turn, played the part of the helpless, fragile wife, crushed by her husband's betrayal and the sudden family tragedy. I leaned against the cold wall, my shoulders shaking, not with loud sobs, but with silent, streaming tears. This suppressed grief was far more effective at garnering sympathy than any hysterical outburst. I knew that in moments of chaos, the first person to regain control dictates the narrative. I needed Kevin. I needed him to pull himself out of his stupor and become my sharpest weapon. I dried my tears, bought a bottle of water from a vending machine, and walked over to him. I pressed the cold bottle against the back of his hand. He flinched and slowly looked up. His eyes, once clear, were now a web of red. "Ellie," he rasped. "Kevin, pull yourself together. Your mom needs us," I said, my voice deliberately hoarse with shared grief. "Ellie, I'm the biggest fool in the world, aren't I?" he choked out, grabbing his hair. "I treated an enemy like a brother. I helped him hurt you. I almost raised his child for him." I didn't answer right away. Instead, I took a manila envelope from my bag, a file I had prepared just for him. I placed it gently on his lap. "What's this?" he asked, looking at the envelope blankly. "It's something I found," I said, my voice catching. "Kevin, I didn't want to show you this. I kept thinking, peace in the family is what matters. I didn't want to make things ugly. But now, with your mom like this, I can't let you both stay in the dark any longer." My words painted me as a fellow victim, someone who had suffered in silence for the sake of family unity, forced to fight back only at the last possible moment. Kevin's trembling hands opened the envelope. The contents were carefully curated by me. First, the bank records of Ethan's transfers to Maya's family, the dates and amounts all clearly marked. Second, the purchase agreements for Maya's condo and Porsche, with all payment information pointing directly to the offshore shell company connected to Ethan's firm. Third, several high-resolution photos of Ethan and Maya together kissing in a parking garage, feeding each other in a fancy restaurant, each one a dagger through the heart of their supposed brotherly bond. And the final fatal exhibit, a copy of Maya's patient file from a top private maternity clinic, obtained by Mac through his channels. Not only did it bear Ethan's signature as the partner, but it also clearly stated that based on the ultrasound, the fetus's gestational age was a full 6 weeks older than the night of Kevin's supposed drunken mistake. It was all there, in black and white, irrefutable. Kevin flipped through the pages, his hands shaking more and more violently. When he saw the final document with Ethan's signature, a choked, animalistic sound escaped his throat. He threw the papers onto the floor, where they scattered like torn white butterflies. "Monster! They're both monsters!" he howled, slamming his fist into the wall. Blood trickled from his knuckles. I immediately knelt and calmly began gathering the scattered evidence, reassembling the file, and pressing it back into his hands. "Kevin," I said, gripping his shoulders, forcing him to look at me. My voice was clear and strong. "Now is not the time to fall apart. Your mom is in surgery. The firm is in chaos. You listen to me. You are the rightful son of this family. You are not useless. There are things you have to fight for now. Not for yourself, but for your mother in that hospital bed, and for the child you were deceived into believing was yours." My words were a shot of adrenaline to his collapsing psyche. I wasn't telling him to let go. I was stoking the fires of his revenge. For someone so utterly betrayed, vengeance was the only thing that could make him stand again. His eyes shifted from despair to a hard, cold fury. That was the look I needed. Just then, the light above the operating room door went out. The surgeon emerged, exhausted. The surgery was a success, he told us, but due to the amount of bleeding, her recovery would be long and difficult. Most importantly, she could not endure any more stress. Ethan, finally releasing a breath he'd been holding, walked over to me, instinctively reaching for my hand. "Ellie, Mom's okay." I recoiled as if I'd been electrocuted, stepping back from him as if he were toxic. "Don't touch me," I said, my voice low and venomous. I channeled every ounce of a wife's betrayal and disgust into my eyes. "Ethan, we are finished." Without another glance at his stunned face, I turned and walked out of the hospital, leaving him to deal with the fallout and with the newly armed, vengeful Kevin. I checked into a 5-star hotel not far from home. I needed a quiet, controlled environment to write the final scenes of my script. For the next 2 days, my phone was a constant barrage of calls and texts from Ethan. At first, they were frantic demands. "Ellie, where are you? Mom just got out of surgery. How could you leave? Listen to me, it's not what you think." Kevin misunderstood. When I didn't reply, the tone softened to desperate pleas. Honey, I was wrong. Please come back. We can talk. Hit me, scream at me. Just don't ignore me. For Leo's sake, please give me one more chance. By the second night, it had become a howl of desperation. Ellie, I'm begging you, answer the phone. The firm is imploding. Kevin is trying to tear the company apart with some documents he found. Mom is crying in the hospital all day. This family can't survive without you. I read his messages with cold detachment. He was more afraid of me leaving now than ever before. With his mother incapacitated, his brother turned against him, and his career on the brink, I and my family's resources was his last lifeline. I would let him stew in that fear until his defenses crumbled completely. On the third night, as expected, my hotel room doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Ethan's haggard face. He looked 10 years older, unshaven and hollow-eyed. I opened the door but blocked the entrance, my arms crossed. What do you want to explain? I asked, my voice dripping with scorn. How long you've been with Maya? Why you used your own brother as a pawn? Or perhaps you want to detail your plan for how you were going to leave me with nothing. Every word was a poisoned dart. He turned pale, his lips trembling. Seeing his pathetic state, I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. Suddenly, he dropped to his knees in the hotel corridor. Ellie, I'm sorry, I was wrong, he sobbed, clutching at my legs. I love you. I've only ever loved you. It was Maya, that bitch. She seduced me. She trapped me with the baby. I was afraid of it affecting my career, our family. His performance was so clumsy, so utterly devoid of responsibility, it made me physically ill. Ethan, save it, I said, kicking his hands away. Your acting skills wouldn't even pass muster with my interns. My contempt seemed to sting what was left of his pride. His pleading face hardened into a venomous sneer. He got to his feet, wiping his face. Eleanor, don't push me, he hissed. You think I don't know? Kevin's sudden rage. Mom, hearing that recording. You orchestrated all of it. You're more cunning than I ever imagined. You didn't underestimate me, I said calmly. You never saw me at all. He laughed, a wild, unhinged sound. Oh, I see you now. I see you for the cold, heartless woman you are. And you're finally showing your true colors, aren't you? I replied, my voice even, selfish, cowardly, and arrogant. My calm infuriated him. He lunged forward, grabbing my wrist, his grip like a vice. I'm telling you, Eleanor, don't even think about divorce. I won't sign anything, he snarled, his face inches from mine. You try to sue me, and I'll make sure you never see Leo again. You think a court will give you custody? I'll tell the tabloids all about the methods our celebrated screenwriter uses to find inspiration for her dark little stories. We'll see who ends up ruined. This was his final move. Using our son to trap me, using public shame to destroy me. It was pathetic. I didn't struggle. I just looked at him, at the desperation in his eyes, and spoke slowly and clearly. Ethan, your biggest problem isn't greed or selfishness. It's stupidity. You assume everyone else is as stupid as you are. My voice was quiet but carried a weight that made him flinch. You really think a screenwriter doesn't know how to protect her most important creation? I yanked my hand free and held up my phone, pressing play. His threats, recorded in crystal-clear audio, filled the air. You recorded me? He stammered, his face ashen. The recording started the second you knocked on my door, I said, then gestured to the security camera in the ceiling. And by the way, your threats and physical assault were all captured right there. Do you still think you have a chance in court? He stumbled back against the wall, drained of all strength. Just then, as I had planned, hotel security and 2 police officers, alerted by a preset panic button on my phone, rounded the corner. As they led a dazed and defeated Ethan away for questioning, I felt nothing. No victory, just a flat, empty finality. Ethan was held for 48 hours and charged with misdemeanor assault and making criminal threats. It wasn't a heavy sentence, but it was crucial. It provided me with a police report, an official record of his violent and unstable behavior, a powerful weapon in any custody battle. The day after his arrest, I went back to the house. It was silent and bleak. Maya was gone, having vanished with her expensive trophies the night of the big blow-up. Kevin sat alone in the wrecked living room, surrounded by overflowing ashtrays. He looked older, but his eyes were no longer weak. They were hard and determined. He handed me a document. It was a divorce settlement proposal from Ethan's lawyer. Ethan was offering me the penthouse and half our savings, but he wanted to keep his firm and demanded joint custody of Leo. He's still dreaming, I said, tossing the papers aside. He thinks a condo and some cash can buy back our son? So, what's your plan? Kevin asked. I looked him in the eye. Do you want what's yours? Not just the money, but your dignity? He nodded fiercely. I placed a black USB drive on the table. This is everything. All the proof of Ethan's embezzlement, tax fraud, and offshore accounts. Kevin stared at it, stunned. How? While your brother was producing his drama, I was writing my own script, I said calmly. And a good script requires good research. I want you to go to him. Tell him you want 30% of the firm as compensation for his deception. Otherwise, this drive goes to the IRS and the district attorney. Will he agree? Kevin trembled. He will, I said with certainty, because he has no other choice. To him, you're a nuisance. I'm the real threat. He'll give you the shares to buy your silence so he can focus on fighting me. Kevin clutched the drive, his face a mixture of gratitude and awe. He stood up and, without another word, walked out the door to confront his brother. The negotiation was, I imagine, dramatic. But in the end, Ethan capitulated. The USB drive was a sword hanging over his head, and Kevin was the one holding the rope. With Ethan released and awaiting his court date, we met at my lawyer's office. He looked like a broken man. My lawyer presented our final divorce agreement. Assets. Ethan would relinquish all marital assets. He would leave with nothing. Custody. I would have sole, unconditional custody of Leo. Ethan would pay a one-time, 7-figure child support settlement and would have severely restricted, supervised visitation rights. The firm, 50% of the shares of his architectural firm would be transferred to my name, free and clear. When he read the third clause, Ethan exploded. Impossible. That firm is my life. This is robbery. Kevin, sitting beside me, cool and composed in a tailored suit, placed the black USB drive on the table. Brother, he said, his voice flat, I suggest you sign. 50% to Ellie is better than 100% of nothing while you're doing hard time. My lawyer delivered the final blow. Mr. Cole, my client requires the shares to secure your son's financial future. As the new majority shareholder, she has also commissioned a full forensic audit of the firm's last 5 years of financial records. Any irregularities will be reported to the proper authorities. That was the checkmate. It was a message to both of them. To Ethan, it said, even after this, I can still destroy you. To Kevin, it said, don't think you're safe. Your fate is tied to his. Ethan collapsed in his chair, sweat beading on his forehead. After a long, silent moment, he picked up his pen and, with a trembling hand, signed his name. The drama he started was finally, officially over. As I left the law office, I saw Maya waiting outside. She looked thin and worn. He really lost everything? She asked, her voice full of disbelief. I looked at this woman who had once turned my world upside down and felt nothing. I handed her a business card. This is the top obstetrics clinic in the city. I've already arranged and paid for the best doctor to handle your procedure. The cost, plus a generous compensation, is taken care of. Consider it a professional courtesy from one woman to another. Your future is your own to decide. She stared at the card, speechless. I got in my car and drove away. The next day, 2 anonymous packages containing identical USB drives and detailed whistleblower reports were delivered to the IRS Criminal Investigation Division and the State Licensing Board for Architects. I had honored my agreement not to use the most damning evidence as leverage in the divorce. This wasn't a transaction, it was a judgment. The fallout was swift and catastrophic. The joint investigation uncovered a massive conspiracy of fraud, tax evasion, and bribery that dwarfed what was on the drive. The Apex Center scandal exploded, taking down a deputy mayor's chief of staff and several other city officials. Ethan, as the central figure, was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. His firm was dissolved, its assets seized to pay off massive fines. Kevin, as a shareholder, was wiped out, his own assets frozen to cover the company's debts. He sold what little he had left and disappeared back to his hometown. Sharon, upon seeing her son in handcuffs on the evening news, suffered another, more severe stroke. She survived but was left permanently paralyzed, condemned to live out her days in a nursing home, a prisoner of her own regret. The family, once so seemingly perfect, had utterly imploded, each member paying the price for their greed and deceit. I didn't stick around to watch the final act. The day the divorce was finalized, I sold my shares in the now defunct firm and donated the entire sum to charities supporting women and children. Then, with Leo and our own clean assets, I boarded a plane and flew west. 1 year later, Santa Barbara, California. The winter sun warms the wooden floors of my living room. The air smells of salt and gardenias. My new home is a white stucco house, a 5-minute walk from the beach. I designed it myself. It is filled with light and life and holds no ghosts of the past. Leo is 4 now. He is tan and happy and loves to surf and build sandcastles with our golden retriever, Sunny. He rarely asks about his father. When he does, I tell him the truth in the simplest terms. His father made some very bad choices and is in a place where he has to think about them for a long, long time. My writer's studio is thriving. My new show, The Mask Within, a dark, psychological thriller I wrote and produced myself, just premiered on HBO. With no big stars and no cheap drama, it became a word-of-mouth sensation, a critical and commercial hit. This afternoon, as I was watching Leo and Sunny play on the lawn, my phone rang. It was Mac. "Kid, congratulations," he boomed. "I binged the whole damn season. It's brilliant, vicious, smart, a whole other level from your old stuff." I smiled, watching my son's carefree laughter. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mac." "Don't give me that," he said, his voice turning thoughtful. "I just handed you some props. You're the one who wrote the script. And let me tell you, kid, real life is a hell of a lot more brutal than anything you could ever write." I took a sip of my tea, looking out at the endless blue where the ocean met the sky. My heart was calm, settled. "No," I said softly, my voice filled with a certainty I had never known before. "You're wrong, Mac." "Oh yeah? How so?" A gentle, determined smile spread across my face as I watched Leo roll in the grass, his laughter echoing in the warm air. "Life is a script," I said. "And now, I'm the one directing."